SFJAZZ is a jazz presenting and educational institution based in San Francisco. We're a nonprofit organization, and we're devoted to showcasing jazz and encouraging the development of jazz through these presentations and education programs. We have two main presenting seasons, the San Francisco Jazz Festival, which has been with us since our founding in 1983, and the SF-Jazz Spring Season, of which the SFJAZZ Collective was born out of that season. The collective is really the sort of manifestation of the ideals of this organization, SF-Jazz. The idea that jazz is a constantly evolving tradition, it's moving forward, and the intent of this band is to create new music and be devoted to new music only. And it achieves it in two manners. One is that every year each of the 8 musicians is commissioned to write a new piece of music for the band, and also every year they pay tribute to a great contemporary jazz composer. This is a project, I think, that anyone who's interested in jazz and interested in contemporary music can't help but love, because it's the quality of the musicianship, the quality of the material. So critics have been very effusive about the project. And the longer they're together, the band is together, the more effusive the praise has become. And I think that's just commensurate with the quality of the work. It's been of the highest quality from year one and really exciting, but it just keeps evolving and changing and becoming, I think the idea of the band is becoming more apparent as it performs. It's an unusual concept. It's not, there is really nothing else like it out there in the performing world right now. This band was formed now 5 years ago by Joshua Redman and myself, talking about what would it be like if this institution for jazz had a performing ensemble, and what would it look like, and what shape would it take, and some of the decisions made for how this band was formed and what it did have continued to stay through the band, and now really are the hallmarks of it. But the formula has stayed basically the same, trying to stay true to this idea of pushing jazz forward. The pieces evolve through the residency process. People come in with an idea. They're writing specifically for the voices in the band and to take best advantage of those voices. But like anything, things change, and part of this collaborative process is everyone's comfort level and giving feedback on the pieces. And you'll see the other musicians in the band, and this is what's exciting about having a composers collective, making a small suggestion, and the openness of the atmosphere for those suggestions is really notable, and this is part of their getting along so well. And it allows the work just to keep lifting as they move along. One of the things that makes the project so vital is the chemistry of the band. And when it was conceived, actually, the chemistry was thought about. Bobby Hutcherson, one of the founding members of the group, when we were asking him to be part of it, he said, "Look, if I'm going to be rehearsing with somebody for 3 weeks, I want to like them." So that became a criteria, actually, for picking people in. Not that they would be likable, but that this would be a compatible group of musicians. And that's something that has evolved, apart from the music itself, which has been great. And in this summer, I was lucky enough to join them on the tour that we'll be watching now, the music that has come from that tour. And it was just fun to see how they got along off of the bandstand. Because these musicians are so accomplished, there is so much respect in the band for each one as an individual amongst each other, and everyone is looking to learn a little bit something from someone else. There's age differences, there's gender differences, there's cultural differences, and one thing I think that unites them is they're all curious and actually nice people, and the result of that is this joy you can palpably feel on the bandstand. One of the great traditions in jazz of Duke Ellington's band was Ellington wrote specifically for the voices in his band. That's what made Ellington a genius for pulling the best out of his players, that respect for his musicians and trying to write specifically for them. And that's what really drives these musicians as well, too. Because these aren't musicians that they work with on a daily basis in their usual leaders' lives, they need to take advantage, or, well, they don't need to, they choose to take advantage of the tremendous capacity of these other musicians in the band. So they're writing specifically for who these musicians are, and that's what makes the music in the end so unusual. Another reason for selecting the modern masters as one half of the repertoire was an audience-driven purpose, which was to expose audiences to the music of these masters. And the work of these composers, particularly for performing arts audiences, may not be familiar or as familiar. And so in concert you may hear, if you're a Thelonious Monk fan, for instance, recognize one of the songs, or if you're a deeper fan, a lot of the songs that are being played that are Monk, the Monk arrangements. But the idea is that this is great music that really deserves to be heard more as well. And these are the great compositions of our time. And for an audience, the audience experience is you're getting a chance to hear both more of that repertoire. And if you're not familiar with it, which in many cases some of the songs, even real jazz fans won't have recognized some of the songs. How those songs are selected also really is an enlightening process, because those songs are selected by the musicians themselves. So the musicians have an opportunity during the pre-rehearsal period to talk about what the repertoire is going to be. The decision for the repertoire is decided months before they come to play, because those arrangements have to be commissioned as well. And in selecting the repertoire, you're getting sort of the best of curation at this point. You're getting 8 curators who know more about this music than most anybody else could, picking what they believe are the most important compositions of each of these composers. So what's heard in concert and what's heard on the recordings is the music that these accomplished musicians and composers believe to be the most important work of this composer, and they're very thoughtful in the process. They're thinking, what is the best early work, what's the good mid-period work, what's the late-period work. It's a very difficult process to do this, because in many cases the repertoire is so deep. There are dozens and dozens of songs to select from. With Thelonious Monk, that was an issue. It's going to be an issue with Wayne Shorter, where you've got all this material. So you're getting a concert that has been curated in a very thoughtful manner, as well as, again, getting the other half of this, of what that music has inspired in these musicians and their compositions.